Hey, this is Amber Rain Davis from NotableInk.com. I recently shared that my color palettes that I choose for cards are often inspired by fabrics that I love. And so I recently staged some of my card photos with the fabrics that inspired the color palette. And I thought I would take that to the next level and actually put the fabric on the cards. So I'm going to be sharing the techniques that I used today with using Altenew dyes and fabrics to create these cards. I'm going to skip over some of the stamping that you've seen me do before and also putting some of the cards together as we've done that a lot, and we'll focus on the fabric. So I'm going to start off with a piece of cardstock here. It's just Nina Solar White 80 pound, and I've put a piece of Stick It adhesive on the back of it. So that's the same size as the cardstock, and what that is a thin double-sided adhesive. And then I'm going to take this piece of fabric, and this is just a scrap piece of fabric that I had from a sewing project from years ago. This fabric's probably maybe 8 or 10 years old, and I am just going to smooth that out. So I laid the cardstock just flat down on the fabric, and I wanted to make sure it was good and stuck, so I'm using a bone folder to really adhere that well and smooth the fabric out. And you can see with me doing that from the front that it actually stretches the fabric, and I get a little wrinkle there. So when I do the next two cards, instead of using my bone folder on the front, I'm going to flip it around and use the bone folder on the cardstock on the back, and that'll eliminate this kind of wrinkling that we're having to the fabric and stretching of the fabric. Also, when you put the fabric and cardstock through your die cut machine, that's really going to press it down very well too. So I'm not too sure how necessary the bone folder part is, but I wanted to make sure it was good and stuck before I started adding my die cut to it. So I'm just using some purple tape here to adhere my die, and this is the, what is this, Gradient Lines cover die from Altenew. I'll have all of the products listed below. And I only ran it through once. Definitely go ahead and run it through twice. The first couple just popped out really easily, and then you can see that the fabric didn't get cut all the way through. There were a couple threads that weren't cut all the way. So I'm just going to use my craft knife and just cut through those. You don't want to force it because that's going to fray your fabric. So if this happens, just go ahead and use a craft knife. The other ones that I did, I ran through twice and didn't have that issue, didn't need to use a craft knife. So I have another piece of fabric here. I thought I'd go with a neutral, just wood grain kind of fabric. This time what I've done is use Elmer's spray adhesive. I took it outside and sprayed it outside just to do something different and add a couple options for you guys of ways to do this. I'm sure that there's other adhesives that you could use as well. And I'm just gonna, like I said, use my bone folder on the back and get that adhered really nicely. And I'll just die cut this with a rectangle die to start, and then I'm actually going to do a second rectangle and turn it into a frame later on in the video. So this piece of fabric is 10 by 10. It is from Joel Dewberry, and it's the Aviary 2 line. I absolutely love this line. This is called a layer cake, that particular size, and you can get all of the colors from an entire line of fabric, or all of the different patterns from an entire line of fabric in one pack of these, which is great. You can also get larger sizes and smaller sizes as well, but it's really great to have all the different colorways and patterns. So that's something to look into if you are looking at doing a project like this. So I am just going to put down 2 pieces of cardstock, and I'm going to use the 2 dies from Dainty Bouquet to cut out some flowers. That is a particularly good die to use because even just cut as white cardstock, it's very obvious what that die is. Some dies, it's not super obvious, but this die has quite a bit of detail where it's very easy to tell it's a flower with a stem, leaves, etc. So here are the negative and positive pieces. In order to get those down, I just placed the negative onto a piece of cardstock and fit in the positive pieces and then glued that negative piece to another one. We can see we have the full panel of fabric there, and then these 2 die cuts. So the frames, the white frames that you see there, are from the Fine Frames cover die from Altenew. So I felt like the bottom of this card just looked really bare with those white stripes. The pattern at the top was pretty top heavy, And so we're just going to add some extra texture with some twine. I also thought wrapping that around the lavender bud die cuts that we have here made sense and would be a nice touch. So you can just see that here. So I started with 3, then 2, and then I'll do another 3 lines of twine there. And that's just a natural color hemp twine from Hemptique. So here's the card with the twine, and here's with the fine frame. So I just took a few of the fine frames and adhered it directly to the card. I thought that would add a nice frame to the flower and ground it and add some texture to the background. For this card, I've added Angelique Motifs die cuts and some lavender bud die cuts, and then just stamped a sentiment in one of those white spaces. So I've done this in several cards, but I don't think I've actually shown it on video. What I'm going to do is dry emboss the background for this card. So I have base plate 1, a cutting plate, 2 spellbinders embossing pads, my cardstock with my stamp sentiment already on it, and then my stencil. Then I'll do another cutting plate and I'll run that through, and that's going to dry emboss my background. So I get a little twitchy about white space that doesn't have any texture at all. So this is just an easy way to add some texture that's not too overpowering for the card. So I popped up the frame with foam adhesive, and then for the Dainty Bouquet die cut, I stamped it with the base layer in Mountain Mist. The 2 purples are Lavender Fields and Midnight Violet, and the greens are Olive and Moss, and those are all from Altenew. And I love that color combination. I think it's so cool to have the base layer of the teal underneath those 2 other colors. So cool. This is one of my favorite stamp sets from them. And I'll get that popped up, and then that will finish the set of cards. So I hope you enjoyed this quick video and feel inspired to give card making with fabrics a try. If you enjoyed these projects today, I sure would love it if you hit the liked button and subscribe so that you don't miss any future projects. I'll also link to a couple more videos at the end of this. Thank you so much for spending time with me today, and have a great day.